Hello everyone, FPL Raps here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be going through my team selection ahead of Game Week 21, and the main discussion point will be Reece James replacements. Obviously, pretty much everyone owns Reece James. He's just picked up an injury. Chelsea have some tough fixtures. They also have 2 blanks coming up as well, so I think it is time to offload Reece James. This is actually my final video in 2021, so I just wanted to say a massive thank you for all of the support that you've shown me throughout this year. I actually only created the channel back in August, ready for this new season, but over the last 5 months, you've just shown me so much support. Whether you're a member of the channel, whether you just watch the videos, whether you like and comment every single time, however you contribute to supporting me, I just appreciate it so much. And I love almost the family that we're building here on this channel, and the community that we have in the comments is absolutely brilliant. And I just can't thank you enough. I know I thank you in every single video, but I also want to thank you officially for all of the support in 2021 as well. With all of that being said, without further ado, let's jump into the final video of 2021. Before we jump into today's video, I just wanted to give a massive shout out to the legends over at OneFootball for continuing to be the sponsors of the team selection videos here on this channel, not only in 2021, but also going into 2022 as well. If you're new to the channel and you don't know who OneFootball are, where have you been? They are the best free football app on the market, whether it be live notifications to your phone during the games, whether you want injury news, press conference updates, different stats for the teams, yellow cards, red cards, goals and assists, whatever it may be, OneFootball will have you covered. And going into the January transfer market, it will be incredibly useful for transfer rumours, transfer news, and everything in and around that as well, with postponements and all of the games being rescheduled and rearranged with the double game weeks, etc. So if you would like to support the channel for free and also download the best free football app on the market, you can do both of those things by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code in the top left corner of the screen. If you do download OneFootball, make sure you do it by scanning the code or clicking the link in the description, and also let me know down below in the comments what you think of the app. So going into Game Week 20, I was really expecting the worst. I knew I was without Salah, who was the main captaincy option this week against a shaky Leicester defence, and I was without Son as well, who was another great captaincy option, and I know he was approaching 100% effective ownership as well. So I was going in without probably the 2 best captaincy options. So in my back of my head, I was thinking, if I can just stay in the top 100k, that would be a result, because I know what Salah can do. I captained Havertz in Game Week 9, so I know what going against Salah can do, and I owned Salah then, and I was thinking, I don't even own Salah this week, so it could be even worse. By some miracle, due to pretty much 3 players and a good captaincy choice, I've actually managed to halve my rank. So I've gone from around 60k to around 30k. And I can't believe it, because it's in those weeks where you think you're going to do really poorly that you often do so well, which is like this week. And those weeks where you're like, my team looks perfect, great captaincy choice, they're the weeks that you get a red arrow. It is just classic FPL. But as I said, it was pretty much down to, number one, Salah not only blanking, but he got 0 points. That is absolutely incredible. Not even 2 points. And those 2 points would have been pretty big, because, again, he's over 100% effective ownership. So that would have ended up losing like 3 or 4 points there. So it was pretty much the best case scenario. When he stepped up for that penalty, I thought that was it. That was my game week over. That was me dropping out the top 100k. Son only getting a single assist. That also was very, very lucky. So I'm happy to admit on this channel when I've been lucky. And I think that's a very, very important part of it. I think it's important to not say when we don't do very well, it's due to bad luck. I mean, when we do well, it's due to skill. I'm fairly happy to say I'm very lucky that Salah blanks, and I'm quite lucky that Son only got 1 single return there. I think on another day, Salah gets 15 points there. He had 2 or 3 great opportunities to score. He had a couple of chances for assist as well. So I'm very, very lucky in this case. And I think if you're a non-Salah owner and a non-Salah captainer, I think you can count your lucky stars as well. But the 3 players that did really well for me was Bowen, Foden and Ronaldo. And luckily, I moved my captaincy from Jota to Foden with about an hour left to the deadline. The reason for that was that I had a really bad feeling that Jota wouldn't start, and I had an increasing confidence that Foden would start. I thought the fact that Foden came off the bench, the fact that he came off the bench, the fact that he played some minutes would suggest that Pep has finished that punishment. Also, he's just so good for City, and I think Pep want to show him that you can't go and do whatever you want outside of the football pitch and off the football pitch. However, I think he also wants to win games, and I think he knows that Foden's arguably his best attacker at the moment. So I thought Foden would start, and then I just had a feeling that he'd hold Jota, maybe give Firmino 60 minutes and bring Jota off the bench. Jota ended up starting, could have had a couple of goals, as he always can. He gets a lot of opportunities, but Foden ended up being the better captaincy choice. So I'm absolutely delighted with that. That's about, I think it was a 9-point swing in the end, captaining Foden rather than captaining Jota, which is a lot of points at this stage. And then Ronaldo and Bowen both getting hauls as well, which is absolutely amazing. Bowen got 3 assists. Ronaldo got a goal and an assist. So those 3 players, pretty much all my points this week. Antonio, yes, got a single assist, but Jota, Trent, James and De Gea all blanked. Cancelo only got the clean sheet, and he's pretty highly owned anyway. If you're wondering what my transfers were, it was exactly what I said in my team selection video. I took out Foster and I took out who's my other striker? I can't remember now. Brought in De Gea and Calvert-Lewin for a -4 this week. I'll remember in a minute who the other striker was. But I brought in De Gea and Calvert-Lewin. That proved to be a pretty stinky hit, to be honest. Calvert-Lewin blanked, which I knew was a big risk when I brought him in, which I'm fairly happy with anyway because I wanted him long term. And De Gea ended up conceding a goal, which Manchester United always do. And it was just, all in all, a pretty terrible hit for this coming week. But I'm glad that I now have De Gea and Ramsdale. I can rotate them if I want to. If I want to bench boost anytime soon, I've got two pretty good playing keepers. For example, this week when Ramsdale plays City, I've got De Gea against Wolves if the game goes ahead. And Calvert-Lewin, they've got so many games to rearrange now. And without the games to rearrange, Everton still have some of the best fixtures in the league. So I'm still really, really happy to own Calvert-Lewin. And that was, as I said, a move for the long term anyway. Dalot not starting was slightly annoying. However, I really don't think Wan-Bissaka had a very good game at all. And when Dalot came off the bench for that 1 point, which gave me a point in the end, so I'm very happy about that. When he came off the bench, he just looked unbelievable. He held possession really well. He looked threatening going forward. So, in my opinion, Dalot is still just about edging Wan-Bissaka for that spot. I don't know if Dalot will start against Wolves. In my opinion, he will, but it might be that Wan-Bissaka did enough for Rangnick. I don't actually know. But for the time being, I think there are bigger issues in my team than Dalot, and therefore I'm happy holding him for at least another week or two. So all of that together meant 67 points with a -4, so 63 points net total. Like I said, halved my rank from 60k to 30k. So going into Game Week 21, I'm in a really good spot. I still plan on using my free hit in Game Week 22. So hopefully I'm going to start to push towards the top 10k, fingers crossed, especially playing the chip as well. Without further ado, let's move on to my team selection ahead of Game Week 21. The other striker was Lacazette. I got there in the end. I had to look after I finished recording that who the other striker was. You guys probably knew more than I did. So just before I go into actually looking at the team, I've just made a slight change to the graphics. I genuinely do want to know what you think. I just think there's often not enough space to get at a full graphic of each of the players on the bench. So I normally just list it in the text, but then sometimes it's difficult to see, are they flagged? What's their fixture? So what I've done is I've just made all of the players a little bit smaller, moved them up a little bit, and it's allowed me to get a little version of each of the players on the bench. Let me know, do you prefer it like this, or should I just switch back to how I had it before? Do let me know. If you can't remember how it looked before, just go back to one of my old videos. I'm always keen to get your input. And if you have any input on how to improve the graphics or anything like that, I'm always happy to hear what it is. So this week, my major issues are all in defence. And I think I'll almost definitely be making one defensive transfer, and I'll likely be making two defensive transfers, and I'll probably therefore be leaving the attack. The reason for that, Cancelo and Trent are absolutely fine. I mean, they don't have very good fixtures this week, but other than that, they are absolutely fine to hold for the foreseeable future. De Gea and Ramsdale are absolutely fine as well. But the other three spots are potential issues in my team. James, at the time of recording, I don't know how serious the injury is, but it looked like a pretty serious injury. And either way, even if he's not out for this week, I just don't really fancy him long term. Liverpool, City, then blanks. I just don't think I want to hold James any longer. And I do think that at the very least, due to him, the fact that even if it was a niggle, he'll probably miss this game. Then I've got Livramento, who again at the time of recording, I don't know how serious that injury is, but Southampton's fixtures aren't that great. Livramento has been struggling recently, and I just think that now might be the time to move away from Livramento. And I've got Dalot, who is of course a rotation risk, as we saw in Game Week 20 with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I don't know what Rangnick's thinking at the moment, whether he wants to keep Wan-Bissaka in the team after that performance, whether he's going to just continue to rotate one after the other. I do think with the double game weeks coming up, the fact that Wan-Bissaka did rotate in Game Week 20 would probably suggest that even if Manchester United get a double game week, Dalot and Wan-Bissaka will probably rotate anyway for it. So really, the only two defenders that I'm happy with are Trent and Cancelo. I'd quite like to replace Dalot, Livramento and James. The fact that Dalot is fit and the fact that he didn't play that many minutes in Game Week 20, I think he might play 21. So really, James and Livramento are the two players at the moment that I'm considering transferring out. That would be a -4. As you can see, I've only got one free transfer. But I would be fairly happy taking a -4 to take out James, take out Livramento, bring in two players with good fixtures, and also potential doubles as well. And we'll discuss that in the next section, or in the final section. We're going to discuss which defenders are the best to bring in at different price points, because I know a lot of you will be making at least one defensive transfer as well. So that is the defense. Not happy with it at all. But I'm looking to target some players with better fixtures, not only for this game week, but also upcoming game weeks as well. And hopefully players that either double in 21 or double in 22, although I might be using the free hit anyway. Let's move on to the midfield. So I've just decided to just put all of the attackers on the screen right now because I don't really plan on making any transfers in my attack. That's not because I don't want players in attack. It's just the fact that my defense is a bit of a mess. And I do think that one of the things that I've learned this year, and a piece of advice for you guys as well, is yes, it's very important to try and chase the upside and bring in players that you think will do very, very well over the coming weeks. And sometimes you can prioritize that. For example, when Firmino was out injured and we all decided to bring in Jota, there are sometimes when you just say, do you know what, I need to bring in that attacker because they've got great fixtures. But there are other times when it's more important to just target the issues in your team. And right now, with a fairly weak defence, 2 injuries in my defence as well, I think now is the time to just focus the transfers on the defence and leave the attack as it is. And I don't think there are any major issues in my attack. Yes, Jota, Foden and Gundogan don't have the best fixtures in the world, but that doesn't mean they can't score. We don't need Liverpool to win. We don't really care if City win as long as they grab some goals, and that is possible in these games. Outside of obviously the 2 City boys and Jota, the fixtures are actually quite nice. The double up for West Ham against Crystal Palace, they're still having a few issues with injury and COVID as well. So we don't know, number one, if the game will go ahead. But if it does, they might have a weaker defence, I should say, which might play into Bowen and Antonio as well. I do think that Bowen is due a rest at some point. A lot of people thought that would come in game week 20. I didn't even really consider it, to be honest. But a lot of people on Twitter said that they avoided bringing in Bowen because they thought he might be rested because he's played 390 minutes in the space of like 9 or 10 days. So that is a potential worry for Game Week 21, although on his current form, I just can't see Bowen being rested. Antonio, I think, should be fine to play as well. Ronaldo against Wolves isn't the best fixture because Wolves have a brilliant, solid defence, so I probably wouldn't captain Ronaldo, and I'm not that delighted owning him for this week, although I don't think that's a major issue. Again, you would expect Manchester United to get a couple of chances. If they do, it will be Ronaldo. And as we saw, Ronaldo can take the chances when he gets them. And then Calvert-Lewin, you can currently see he has my vice captaincy. The reason for that is at the time of recording, we don't have the Game Week 21 fixtures announced, the double fixtures, I should say. There might be a double game week, there might not. At the time of recording, it looks like there might be a couple of fixtures. And one of the fixtures which Ben Crellin says is a probable double game week is Everton. Now, Everton might get the most likely second fixture they might get is Leicester at home. That would give Calvert-Lewin the double game week of Brighton at home and Leicester at home. If that's the case, he'd probably get my captaincy armband, because as you can see in my team, without Son in my team, I don't really have a clear captaincy shout. So until the doubles get announced, I've currently got the captaincy armband on Gundogan. The reason for that is I just expect him to start. I think Pep will rotate once again. I don't think the performance against Brentford was great. There's obviously not a lot of rest period again in between the games. So I think Gundogan might step back in. I might potentially put the captaincy armband on Foden if not, but I don't see a real clear-cut captaincy in my team. However, if any of my players get a double game week announced, then they'll probably be my captain, unless it's a defender with a random double game week. But I like the idea of potentially Calvert-Lewin against Brighton and Leicester. He might not start either. He might only get like 70, 80 minutes and then 30 minutes off the bench, but he's still going to get more minutes than most players in my team this week. And I just fancy he might start both. He could get 60 minutes in both. Therefore, he's got 120 minutes. Leicester defence hasn't been great, even though they performed quite well against Liverpool. And Brighton defence is obviously decent as well. But when there aren't that many great options in your team, sometimes you just got to take the risk. And there's a potential he could start and play 90 minutes in both. I doubt it due to the fitness that he's had previously, obviously not playing a lot of minutes. But I do think he's probably the best option if he gets the double game week. So as you can see, the team doesn't look great this week, but I don't think a lot of people's will. The fact that Chelsea are playing Liverpool, the fact that City are playing against Arsenal, the fact that Manchester United have Wolves, which isn't an easy fixture, I don't think many teams will look very good for this week. I personally don't think that that's a reason to play the free hit this week. You could say, do you know, I'll play the free hit and I'll load up on teams that I'll get rid of all my Chelsea players, I'll get rid of all my Liverpool players. But if that Chelsea-Liverpool game is 4-4 and Jota scores a hat-trick and Salah scores a brace, you're going to massively regret it. You won't have those players in your team. And to be honest, I don't think that that's necessarily out the equation. I think that there could be quite a few goals in the Chelsea-Liverpool game. I think you could quite easily see City overturn Arsenal by 3 or 4 goals. These are things that I wouldn't necessarily put it past these teams scoring that many goals. So for me, I don't want to play the free hit, but I am expecting a fairly low-scoring week due to all of my players playing against each other. It's just one of those things. These things happen in FPL. The major issue that I've got therefore, as I said, my defenders, I've got 2 defenders with injury issues. I've got Dalot that has potential rotation issues. And I forgot to mention, Cancelo was unfortunately attacked, him and his family. I think it was his house was burgled. All of his jewellery was stolen. He's got a massive cut on his head where he was attacked by the attacker. He was assaulted. So, number one, FPL goes out the window with this, and massive thoughts. All of my thoughts go out to Cancelo and his family. But the second thing to note, therefore, is he might not play in Game Week 21. And if he doesn't, I've therefore got James and Livramento out due to injuries, probably. We haven't had that confirmed. Dalot might be rotated with Wan-Bissaka. Cancelo might miss out due to wanting to be with his family and just have the time to process what's happened to him. I might be left with just Trent there. So I think I need to make probably 2 transfers in my defence. At the very least, I'd make 1 transfer in my defence. and therefore I'll probably leave my attackers. The only issue I will have if I leave my attackers and there aren't any double game week fixtures announced, I don't know who to captain. So let me know down below, if there aren't any doubles, who would you captain from my team? Cancelo was a potential option, but I just think that he's probably unlikely to play now due to that, or I think he should probably have some time up, but obviously that's up to him. Outside of that, I think Gundogan, Foden and Calvert-Lewin would be my main 3 options. Maybe just captain Calvert-Lewin and hope that the double game week is announced after the deadline, or just go for Foden and Gundogan and hope that Man City overturn Arsenal. What we're now going to do is we're going to look at Reece James replacements and just defenders in general. Like I said, I'm going to be probably bringing in 2 defenders. So I'm going to go through my top defensive options to replace James and just in general. Then I'm going to go through my watch list based on that. And after that, I'm going to go through tinkering with the team. So there's still a lot to come. Let's get on with it. Right. Let's do this. So here are my top 10 replacements for James, or just defenders in general that you might want to target. This list, as I always say in these videos, this list is not exhaustive. There are other options out there 100%. Even from the same teams, there might be some better options. But for me, having done the research that I've done over the last 24 hours or so, these are my top 10 options. And I'll go through each of them and just give a bit of reasoning why they are one of my top options, and also maybe say who my favourites are and who I'm looking to bring in myself. What I've tried to do is I've tried to include players at different price points. So as you can see, you've got, as the cheapest, you've got Diop at 4.3 million, all the way up to Van Dijk at 6.6. The reason for that is different people have different structures, different people have different budgets, different people want to spend different amounts on their defence, etc. So I've tried going through some different options for you, just so that you've got them there. So starting with the cheapest is Diop. There is, of course, Johnson, who's cheaper. I just think with those wing-back positions, with Cresswell, Johnson and Sofal, I just don't know which way Moyes want to do it, and there could just be rotation between the 3 of them. I think that arguably going off this season, it should be Johnson at right back and Cresswell at left back. However, I think Sofal is an excellent defender as well, and therefore I think you could see a bit of rotation there, and I'm just not sure in which direction that will be. And I don't think the 3 of them at the moment offer enough in attack, apart from potentially Cresswell, to really warrant going for them over one of the centre-backs. Now, if you're going to go for one of the centre-backs out of Diop and Dawson, I do think that Dawson's the better option, but he's, of course, I think he's 4.9. I could be wrong there. I think Dawson's 4.9, so it's £0.6 million more expensive. So the reason I've got Diop in here is just that I think he's probably the best cheap option if you want to go for someone at that price. The issue with Diop, yes, he's very cheap, but he also has 0.00 expected goals per 90 and expected assists per 90. Which is really, really poor. He's basically got no goal involvement, so expected goal involvement so far. Of course, that can change, and he is pretty decent in the air, so I do think that he'll get some opportunities, but Dawson is definitely the one they aim for from corners, and he's definitely the high goal threat there. So if you want to go for a West Ham centre-back, I would try and stretch up the Dawson, but if you want to go for the cheaper one, Diop is there as an option. If we take a look at West Ham's defensive numbers, they're sort of mid-table. They're 9th for expected goals conceded per 90. They're 11th for shots conceded per 90 and 13th for shots in the box conceded per 90. So they're sort of mid-table, as you would expect. So I guess I wouldn't necessarily target the West Ham defence, and going off Diop's numbers, I don't think he's the best option here by any means. Fixtures-wise, they've got the 12th best fixtures in the league over the next 6 game weeks. So everything here to me suggests that West Ham are sort of a middling defence with middling fixtures, and therefore I think there are probably better options that you could definitely be going for. However, if you only have 4.3 million, I do like Diop as an option. If you just want to stretch up a little bit, you've got Matty Lowton in there. The reason I've put Lowton in is, firstly, Burnley's defence is pretty shocking. As you can see there, they're 20th for shots conceded per 90, 20th for shots in the box conceded per 90, and they're 17th for fixtures over the next 6 weeks. So they don't have good fixtures and they don't have a good defence. The reason I've put him in is his expected assists are actually pretty good at 0.11. He's a pretty creative player. He's only 4.4 million, and Burnley just have so many fixtures to rearrange that they've almost definitely got 2 or 3 doubles coming up over the next 10 game weeks. And they might have a triple game week at some point. So I'm putting him in there for the sheer amount of fixtures that you'll get and also the cheap price. But I do think there are better options just because Burnley's defence is pretty terrible and the fixtures aren't that great in and around the fact that they're going to have a lot of fixtures. I would probably, if I'm going to go for a cheap option, I think Davies is definitely the best option here. 4.5 million. Spurs are a much better defence. Under Conte, they've definitely improved, and even across the entire season, they're 7th for expected goals conceded per 90 at 1.12, which is really, really impressive considering they had a pretty poor start to the season. 10th for shots conceded per 90 and 11th for shots in the box conceded per 90. So a pretty decent defence. They're definitely improving under Conte. And Davies has some really good underlying stats. As you can see, he has the best expected goals per 90. here on the list at 0.16. His expected assist isn't great at 0.04, but that does put his expected goal involvement per 90 at 0.2. He's getting a fair amount of touch in the box as well at 1.64, and he can fill in at left back. If there were injuries to Reguilon and Sessegnon, you could see him at left wing back, but he tends to play in that left centre back role, but he does still get forward a fair amount, similar to the way that we see Rudiger do so for Chelsea as well. So I do think that if you're going for a cheaper defender, I do really, really like Davies, and I think he would be my personal choice at £4.5 million or under. If you've got a little bit more money and you want to stretch a little bit further than 4.5 million, I think there are two options between 4.5 and 5 million. I think Target is someone that is going massively, massively under the radar. Let me start with the pros for Target. Number one, his underlying statistics are really good. As you can see there, his expected assist is the joint second best on this list, the same as Lowton at 0.11. His expected goals aren't great, and his touches in the box aren't great, but you really have him for that creativity. He does take some corners, he does take some set pieces, and he's just got a brilliant left foot. He does whip in some really good crosses as well. Aston Villa's defence isn't great, and we thought there might be a slight improvement under Gerrard. There has been a slight improvement, but they're still not great, and even in the fixtures, even in the recent fixtures since Gerrard's taken over, they're by no means sort of a top half defence. They're sort of mid-table. So I don't necessarily think that Aston Villa are the best defence to target. What I do like, though, like I said, the creativity is great, the price is great, and also the fixtures are really, really good. You can see there they've got the 6th best fixtures in the Premier League over the next 6 game weeks, and they've probably got a double definitely in 22 they'll have a double, potentially in game week 21 they might have a double as well, and they've got a few fixtures to rearrange as well. So there are lots of things to like about Target. Cheap price, really nice creativity, and really nice fixtures, but Aston Villa's defence isn't the best in the world. He's not getting into the box that much, and his goal threat isn't great either. So as with all of these cheaper defenders, there's going to be pros, there's going to be cons, but I definitely think that Target's someone that's going under the radar. We'll discuss him in comparison to Cash in 2 seconds. The next player on the list is Michael Keane. Now, there are other options that you could potentially go for at Everton. I just think that you just don't know who's always going to start in that Everton defence, but I think that Keane is pretty much nailed for 90 minutes every single game. And he does carry some goal threat as well. 0.04 expected goals isn't great. 0.07 expected assist is quite surprising. It is because he created a big chance in there. So 0.11 expected goal involvement per 90 is pretty decent for a £4.9 million centre-back. 0.88 touch in the box is sort of what you'd expect for a centre-back. Everton's defence is pretty similar to Aston Villa's there. You can see 1.49 expected goals conceded per 90. So not a great defence for Everton. They have been really, really poor recently. The reason that I've got Keane on here, apart from the fact that he's pretty nailed, fairly cheap at 4.9 million, is that Everton have the best fixtures from a defensive perspective according to the Fantasy Football Fix ticker over the next 6 game weeks. And that's without the potential doubles as well. And again, similar to Aston Villa, Everton could have a double in game week 21 and game week 22. So I just think if you take all that into account, there are worse options than Michael Keane, and I'm definitely considering him. I do think there are better options in this list, but if you're looking at targeting the fixtures, I don't think you can really go elsewhere other than an Everton player, and Keane is probably the best one there for you. Moving up to 5 million and above now, this is where my 2 favourite players are at the moment, or my 3 favourite players probably. But obviously you're paying a lot more for them as well. So my 2 top targets at the moment, my 2 favourite players are the 2 £5 million players with the names starting with C, and that is Cucurella and Cash. Both of these guys are top of my list, and at the time of recording, if I was forced to bring in 2 players, I would bring in Cucurella and Cash for Livramento and James. Let me explain why. Cucurella is one of those players where the underlying statistics are okay, but it's the eye test which really, really makes you want him. 0.09 expected assist is good, fairly creative. His goal threat is very, very low, but he is getting quite a few touches in the box at 1.46. So not great goal threat, but you could imagine that would increase in the future if he continues to get 1 or 2 touches in the box per 90 and the expected assist there. But he just looks so good. He always looks so threatening, similar to Lamptey on the other side. Very, very lively. And I should say the only reason that Lamptey's not on here is just fitness concerns and minutes. I think, yes, Lamptey will start the majority of games, but I don't think he'll get 90 minutes in many games. I think he will be on the bench for a few. I think Veltman's another good option as well, but I just think that Cucurella, if I'm going to go for a Brighton defender, I think I'd go up to 5 million for Cucurella. He looks fairly nailed in that team. He's not that expensive at 5 million, and the stats are decent as well. The other reason that I love Cucurella is Brighton's defence continues to be really, really good for the underlying statistics. They are 6th in the league for expected goals conceded per 90, 4th in the league for shots conceded per 90, and 6th in the league for shots in the box conceded per 90. So I just think that Cucurella is a fantastic option due to having decent underlines, nailed, fairly cheap price, and also the fact that Brighton are a fantastic defence. You can see here, the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm has them down as 18th for fixtures over the next 6 game weeks. I think the main reason for that is they blank in game week 24. So if you can get away with benching Cucurella in game week 24 and you've got someone else you can rotate in, I think their fixtures are significantly better than they look. So I wouldn't let that put you off as long as you've got someone that can come in 24. I think the fixtures are actually really, really decent. And they've got games to be rearranged as well. So they're likely to have double game weeks, probably in 22, maybe in other game weeks as well. So Cucurella is definitely in my top 2 at the moment. I think top of my list is still Matty Cash. However, as you can see, Target's underlying statistics are comparable to Matty Cash. And I tweeted about this earlier. If we just go off of expected goal involvement, which is goals and assists combined, Matty Cash's is 0.13, Target's is 0.14. He's £0.3 million cheaper. So Matty Target is definitely an option. The reason that I'm potentially looking away from Cash as well, and this is maybe a case of overthinking it, is Cash is on 4 yellow cards. Now, that resets after the team has played 19 fixtures. Obviously, Aston Villa have played 18. So all Matty Cash needs to do is he needs to get through the first fixture of game week 21 without being booked. So as long as he doesn't get booked in the next fixture for Villa, he'll be fine. If he does get booked in that, and Villa don't get a double game week in 21, he'll miss the game week 22 fixture. If they do get a double game week in 21, then he'll just miss the second fixture in game week 21. So it might not be the end of the world, and I might be overthinking it, and he'll know that that booking is there, so he'll probably try and be on his best behaviour, but sometimes it's unavoidable, sometimes it's just a mistimed challenge. So that does put me off slightly, the fact that he's £0.3 million more expensive than Target. His stats aren't that much better. And also the fact that he's on 4 yellow cards. They are some of the reasons that I potentially would look away from Matty Cash. The reason that I potentially would look at him is his underlying stats are still pretty good. And what I like about him in comparison to Target is he's getting 3.03 touches in the box per 90. So he's significantly more involved in the action. That would tell me that Target's stats might drop slightly because I doubt he can continue to be that creative if he's not getting into the positions to create. And I would expect that maybe Cash's will start to increase. If he's getting 3 touches in the box per 90, that's quite a lot for a fullback. As you can see, it's by far and away the best on this list here. So you would expect that maybe Cash's stats would start to increase. Obviously, Villa's defence still isn't great, as we discussed in the Target section, and their fixtures are great. So really, what I'm saying is I think Target is a great option, and I think if the yellow cards put you off, or you can't afford Cash, or you just want to use that extra 0.3 million elsewhere, I do think that Target is a fantastic option, and I don't think you should necessarily just follow the Cash bandwagon that I guarantee will start to take shape over the coming game weeks. But I do think I'm still slightly leaning towards Cash. I have the cash to do so, and also I just think that he does slightly edge it with the eye test, with the touches in the box. I just think that I do slightly prefer Cash still, but I do think the Target's a fantastic option. So currently my 2 top options are Cash and Cucurella. I do still really like Reguilon. I think I was put off him by the people on Twitter, and let me list the reasons because I do think it is important to take into account some other opinions. The first thing to note is that he has the best underlying statistics on this list. He has expected goal involvement of 0.23, 0.15 expected assists per 90, 0.8 expected goals per 90. He's by far and away the most attacking player on this list, in my opinion. 1.87 touch in the box per 90 puts him second on this list as well. So if we're just going off underlying statistics, Reguilon is the man to get. There are a few people on Twitter that seem to think, number one, Sessegnon when fit, and of course Sessegnon isn't fit at the moment. When he is fit, Sessegnon might take minutes off him. I've spoken to a few Tottenham fans. They actually prefer Sessegnon. They think he's got a better end product. They think he's technically more able as well. If that is the case, Conte might start to rotate them a little bit more. And if Sessegnon can have a few good performances, as he did against Liverpool, by the way, he pretty much pocketed Salah. I know that is a crazy thing to say, but he performed really well. If Sessegnon can string a few good performances together, he might take that spot off of Reguilon. And I just think that I'm not necessarily sure I want that constant worry. And also, Reguilon has real fitness issues. And there is someone on Twitter, Baker, who said that he thinks that he would be massively surprised, and he has bet someone that Reguilon won't play more than 10 games in the rest of the season. Obviously, Tottenham have around an extra another 20 games to play. So what he's saying is he doesn't expect Reguilon to play more than 50% of the remaining fixtures over the coming game week. So that does put me off slightly. A lot of people seem to think that his injuries, coupled with the fact that Sessegnon is a great option in at left wing back, means that he might not play that many fixtures. So I guess I might, if I want to go for a Tottenham defender, I might just go for Davies. He's obviously, as you can see, £0.8 million cheaper. His expected goals is significantly higher. His expected goal involvement isn't that much lower. And obviously, he is just as now, if not more now, than Reguilon. So I do think that potentially Davies is the one to go for if you're going to go for a Tottenham defender. Outside of Davies, you do have Dyer, who's another great cheap option. I think he's on up to £4.6 million now, Dyer, but still a fairly cheap option. And then you've got Emerson Royale at £4.9 million. So there are so many options in that Tottenham defence. Sanchez is another option as well, but I just don't think he's quite as nailed as Davies and Dyer. So for me, At the moment, just about, I think Davies I prefer to Reguilon. Then I think Dyer and Emerson are two good options as well. And then I think you've got Sanchez as well in there. I think it's pretty tricky. I just think due to how cheap he is, due to the fact that I think he is nailed, although he was rotated recently, the fact that he's got really good underlying statistics, I think I would just about lean to Davies. But don't let what I've just said put you off of Reguilon. If you fancy him, go for it. I still think he's first choice. I still think he's got the best underlying statistics on this list here. If he can stay fit, nail down that position, I think Reguilon is the best option on the list. It's just whether you think he can do those two things. The final two options are two premium players, Laporte and Van Dijk, playing for the two best defences in this league. As you can see, if you switch over to the team statistics from a defensive perspective, City are by far and away the best defence in the league, and Liverpool are the second best defence in the league, probably just ahead of Liverpool and just ahead of Chelsea in third. My main issue with Laporte is I have triple City already, and I don't want to take out Gundogan or Foden because I need to target the defence. So for me, Laporte is out of the question unless I tag out Gundogan or Foden. However, if I didn't already own triple City, Laporte would be in my top three choices. Really, really good goal threat at 0.11 expected goals. I think he's just about as nailed as Diaz at the moment, maybe slightly less, but I think he is first choice centre-back in that system. City's defence is so good. And apart from the fact that they don't have that many doubles coming up, as you can see, they are fifth for fixtures over the next 6 game weeks from a defensive perspective. So I think all of that together, I think Laporte, it's not a no-brainer, but he's a fantastic option. Great goal threat, great team he's playing for from a defensive perspective, and decent fixtures as well. So I think if you only own one City player or you only own two, you might want to go for Laporte. I unfortunately can't go for him, and therefore he's out of the question, but I would have considered him if I could have. And I've put Van Dijk. Now, I want to start by saying massive caveat here. If you don't want to take a hit to bring Salah back in, or a massive hit to bring him back in, and you're not wildcarding early, Van Dijk might be a slightly tricky one because you're going to have Jota probably already. You've got Trent probably already. Van Dijk would be tripling up on Liverpool. So to bring Salah back in, you'd have to remove Jota, Trent, or Van Dijk. So that puts me off slightly that I don't want to triple up on Liverpool, make it really tricky to bring Salah back in. However, if you're going to have to take a hit probably to bring Salah back in anyway, so you could downgrade Van Dijk to like a £4.5 million defender, and that might give you the funds to get back up from Son to Salah. So you might still be able to get to Salah anyway, but I think it's unlikely that that will be your route to do it. The reason I like Van Dijk is I think Liverpool, again, have the second best defence in the league according to most of the underlying statistics. They've got really good fixtures. They've got the third best fixtures over the next 6 game weeks. They've now got fixtures to be rearranged as well. And I just think the fact that Chelsea and City have some trickier fixtures and the fact that they don't have doubles, I just think that from game week 22 onwards, a Liverpool defender could be a great option. But then from game week 24 onwards, you're probably going to want to bring Salah back in. So it does make it tricky. It's probably quite a short-term move. But I do think that in game week 22, Liverpool, I believe, could have Leeds and Brentford as a double. If you could have Trent and Van Dijk against Leeds and Brentford, you could potentially captain one of them. I just think that that is a really great option. Van Dijk's underlying stats aren't that great, but they're also not too bad. 0.07 expected goal involvement, 1.59 touches in the box. So I do think he's a great option. I just think I'd rather save 1.6 million and go for a Cucurella or a Cash personally. So that is 17 minutes I've just checked of talking about defenders. I wasn't planning on talking for that long, but I think all of us are going to be making defensive choices this week. So I think it's important to make these choices and talk about it in a little bit more depth. So for me, Cucurella and Cash are the two main options. I do really like Reguilon. I think I would probably go for Davies, though. I think I'd just go a little bit cheaper. And then I do really like Laporte if you're not tripled up on City. So, guys, that leaves my watch list looking like this. As I said, I'll be using probably 2 transfers on 2 defenders this week. And as I said in the James replacement section, my top 3 options at the moment are Cash and Cucurella. And if I want to go a little bit cheaper, I'm looking probably at Davies. I just think he's the best option at Spurs due to his price and also his underlying statistics. Outside of that, if I am to bring in any attackers this week, I think most likely it would be to try and get Son in for one of Gundogan or Foden, but I just don't have any money in the bank. It will require another transfer elsewhere. I just don't think that I can work Son into my team at the moment, unfortunately. So I might have to go without him for at least game week 21. I'll then probably free hit in 22, so it might be from 23 onwards, but then the fixtures turn. So it might be that I just have to go without Son for until later in the season, potentially. Outside of that, I think Dennis and King could be 2 really good options in attack. I just think they're pretty cheap. They might double in game week 21 at the time of recording, or we don't know anything about the doubles in game week 21, but they're just cheap. They're good options. It now looks like Dennis isn't going to go to AFCON. However, I have just seen a few accounts tweet that there's something in the rules which suggests that potentially Dennis might not be able to play for Watford for the entire period that AFCON is on. Now, I don't know if that's official. That hasn't been announced officially anywhere. But if that is the case, it might be that, yes, Dennis doesn't go to AFCON, but he still can't play anyway. If he does play, I do think that potentially Dennis was the one to go for. He's continuing to perform. So it would be a decision between Dennis and King. But I'm fairly happy with my 3 strikers. So I think for the time being, I'll keep Antonio, Ronaldo and Calvert-Lewin there. So if I do bring in 2 defenders and I go for Cash and Cucurella, what you can see on screen is using the Fantasy Football Fix rotation planner. I've just got what it would look like if I only play one of Cash and Cucurella each week. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that I would use these fixtures, but what I want you to see is that if you only play one each week, you can get a really, really good fixture each week. So I'll just read it out if it's too small for you to see on your screen. So this week, you could play Cash against Brentford, or you could potentially play Cucurella against Everton. You've then got next week, you would play Cucurella against Crystal Palace. The week after that, you've got Cash against Everton. You've then got Cash against Leeds, Cash against Newcastle, or Brighton against Watford. So they've both got good fixtures in 25. Importantly, for 24, you've got Cash against Leeds when Cucurella blanks. In 26, you've then got either Cash against Watford or Cucurella against Burnley. 27, you've got Villa. You've got Cash against Brighton, or you've got Cucurella against Villa. And then, obviously, they play against each other there, but you could play either of them or both. And then in 28, you've got Cash against Southampton is probably the better fixture there, although Brighton have Newcastle. So I guess what I want to show here is if you bring in those 2 players, you can play either of them each week and you'd have great fixtures. And even if you want to play both, apart from game week 24 when Brighton blank, I'd say each week I'd be happy playing either of them. There isn't a single fixture there. Potentially Cash against Manchester United in 22 isn't the best fixture in the world, but I would be pretty happy playing either of those every single week, both or one of the others. So I guess what I'm saying is I think if you're looking to bring in 2 defenders right now, like I am for Livramento and James, or just 2 defenders in general, just make sure that they rotate well, because most weeks you probably won't want to play both of them. If you've also got Cancelo, Trent, Alonso alongside them, you might only want to play one of them. It would be nice to make sure that each week they have a nice fixture. So just check the 2 that you want to bring in, check that they rotate fairly well. You can do that by going over to the rotation planner on Fantasy Football Fix, or you can just create your own on Excel, which is sometimes what I do as well. Right. All of that being said, that is my watch list. Let's take a look. We're going to just have a quick, it will be quick, I promise. It'll be a quick live tinker of my team if I make those transfers. What it will look like for 21. I'm probably then free hitting in 22. So I then want to look like what my team looks like for 23 onwards and see if I can plan any transfers based on that. Right, as I said, just a quick little tinker now just to show you what my team will look like for 21 and then 23 onwards. I'll show you in a second, but I am about 85% sure that I'm going to free hit in 22. The reason is we still don't have the fixtures for 22. It's almost definitely going to be a very big double game week, as confirmed by Ben Crane over on Twitter. But we don't have the fixtures yet, and I just don't think that we've had enough time to plan optimally to attack Game Week 22 without either a wildcard or a free hit. I don't want to wildcard this early. I'm very against that. I don't know what I want my wildcard team to look like for the rest of the season. And therefore, I think the best way to navigate 22 will be to free hit. If you've already played your free hit, I would potentially hold it because I think blank game week 30 is going to be difficult to navigate without the free hit unless you use your wild card just before it. So I would decide, do you want to play your second free hit in 22 or in 30? I think if you've still got both free hits, I think using one in 22 is probably a smart idea. You can get 11, potentially even 15 doublers if you want to load your bench as well in case any of them miss out. You can get quite a few doublers in. The other reason that I really want to do it is I want to keep at least double City, probably. And I don't really want them in game week 22, probably. And I do want them from 23 onwards. So this means that I get to keep my City players from 23 onwards and I don't have to lose them by transferring them out for 22. All of that being said, let's start with game week 21. So this is bringing in Cash and Cucurella for Livramento and James. I don't know who I would play out of Dalot, Cucurella and Cash. I'd have to have a think about it. At the moment, I've got Matty Cash in there. I think maybe Dalot against Wolves might be a good option there. I just don't know that I'm confident enough that it was going to start. And now that I know that he might cameo off the bench as he did in game week 20, that might put me off slightly. So I'd need to have a think about Cucurella, Dalot and Cash. Let me know down below if you think there's a clear option. It probably wouldn't be Calvert-Lewin. It probably wouldn't be Cucurella, sorry, because I've got Calvert-Lewin. I'd probably just put all my eggs in one basket and just hope that Everton score. So that's how it would look for game week 21. Not sure on captaincy at the moment. As I said, hopefully we get a double game week of some kind. And that might help slightly. At the moment, it's on Foden from last week, but it might be on Gundogan or Foden. If not, who knows? I'll probably discuss that over on Twitter today and tomorrow. So game week 22, I'm going to ignore for now because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be free hitting. So that would leave me back with this team in game week 23. I know that's a long way in the distance. Anything could happen between now and then. But the team's actually looking really nice. I've still got Martinelli on my bench, remember? So Martinelli could come back in for Bowen in this fixture here. I'd probably potentially keep cash in against Everton, although maybe not. Maybe I'll do Leicester, maybe Cucurella against Leicester there. So again, I've got three options there in Dalot, Cash and Cucurella each week. So the team looks really solid here. I'm very, very happy with this. Game week 23, so Salah's still not back from AFCON, so you could potentially captain Jota against Crystal Palace, but I do have enough captaincy options here. Potentially you do go for a City boy again, Foden or Gundogan there, depending on who starts in game week 22 there. So I've got enough options there. If we then move on to game week 24, this is when Cucurella blanks, but as we said, we've got Cash against Leeds, and we've got Dalot against Burnley as well. We can bring Bowen back in, who's got Watford as well, which is a lovely fixture there. So as you can see, I suppose what I want to show here is that my team's actually really well set up. This is another reason I don't want to wildcard. If I can free hit in 22 to try and attack all of those double game weeks, which is the main reason I'd want to play a wildcard, I can then keep a team which is really, really well set up. I haven't made any transfers here since game week 21 to bring in Cucurella and Cash. Yes, COVID could absolutely demolish my team. City game could be cancelled, then the Liverpool game. Of course, anything could happen with COVID at the moment. But assuming that most of the games go ahead and that I only have to use transfers to deal with postponements, the team's really nicely set up here. I've got a bench most weeks. If we then skip to 25, the team looks perfect. I don't even need to touch it particularly, but I might want to bring in Cucurella against Watford for someone. Maybe that's when I bring him in for Cash there. But the team's brilliant. I can keep going as well. It does look pretty good for future weeks. I think game week 27 is a week which isn't that ideal for me. If I just bring... We'll just leave that because again, the team's absolutely fine there. I think it's 27 is a slightly tricky week, yeah. So 27's a slight issue in the Liverpool blank. I've got Martinelli blanking as well. Calvert-Lewin against Manchester City. But in and around that, the team is fairly okay. So if I just bring in the players that I've got, and again, this is way in the future. Anything could happen between now and 27, of course. But if I just bring in the players I've got, I can still field 11. I'd probably want to take Martinelli out before then anyway. I don't think I'd want to keep Martinelli that long anyway. But the team's all right. So even 27, which is a slight issue, I can still maneuver. Then I go forward, and I think pretty much what I'm trying to show is that I'm fine up until probably around game week 30, assuming there are no major issues with the season being paused or loads of COVID absolutely smashing my team up. And that's why I want to save most of my chips for later in the season. I want to play my wild card probably after blank game week 30. So I'd probably free hit my second free hit in game week 30, wild card in 31 or 32, and then I would have the bench boost triple captain in between game weeks 33 and 38 potentially as well. I might even play the wild card even later. It might be that a wild card in like 34, triple captain 35, and I might end up like bench boosting the 36. So I think I'll play those three chips right towards the back end of the season and use that to really attack the back end of the season. I think I can maneuver between now and game week 32 with just free hit in 22 and free hit in 30. So that is the current plan. Let me know down below what your current plan is. Are you going to free hit in 22? This does mean that there will be a free hit draft coming for Game Week 22 and lots of content around Game Week 22 as well, which is very exciting because there is 2 weeks between the Game Week 21 deadline and the Game Week 22 deadline as well. So there'll be plenty of content. Look out for all of that, but that is the current plan. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 21 team selection, as well as a discussion around James replacements, my current watch list, and also my chip strategy heading into double Game Week 22 as well. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Those 3 things are absolutely free to do. And in and around that, you can also download OneFootball. You can scan the QR code at the start, or you can click the link in the description. It's free for you guys, so you're just downloading a free app, but you're also supporting me as well, which is massively appreciated. As I said at the start, this is my final video of 2021, so I just want to say another thank you for all of the support so far over this year. I'm so excited to see what we can achieve in 2022. And I say we because this is as much your channel as it is mine, because without you guys watching and supporting, this channel would be absolutely nothing. So thank you so much. I hope you have I hope all of you have green arrows in 21. I hope you have an incredible week. Until next time, guys, which will be ahead of Game Week 22 and a probable free hit. Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye-bye.